How's it going, guys? Strife here. I'm going to go through my warrior build that I use for dungeons real quick today. I've been getting some questions on what the warriors in my group are running in my dungeon videos. So I have a warrior that I use as well. It's the same build. I've been starting to use it more, so there should be some videos up from warrior perspective pretty soon. But okay, so going through the gear, it's basically DPS build, but it has a little bit of survivability. The way you want to do it is, for instance, I have my helm, my chest, and my legs as the knight set, which is primary toughness. Different pieces of gear, you lose a different amount of stats per 1% crit. So for instance, the helm and the shoulders give 2% critical hit damage, but on the shoulders you're only losing 24 of a minor stat, meaning 12 stats in exchange for 1% crit damage. Whereas the helm, where you get 2%, you would be losing 32 stat points total, which is 16. So basically, if you are balancing survivability and damage from berserkers, there are certain pieces which you want to take as knights to lose less stats. So those pieces for my build are the helm, the body, the legs, and both rings. The guild backpack is basically the middle ground. So for the guild backpack, you're going to lose 14 of a minor stat for 1% of a critical hit damage. All the gear that I have that's knights is over 14 stat points per 1%, and all the pieces that I have as berserker are under 14. So that'll give you a little idea. You can do your own research, or there's a post about it on Reddit already, which has the breakdown for each piece of gear. Okay, so as I said, I have the 3 with knights, and then the shoulder, the gauntlets, and the legs as berserker. I have rubies socketed in 4 of them, and then by personal preference, I like monk in 2 of them. For the 15% boon duration, you can stack might longer and fury. That's totally optional. You could do 6 ruby, or if you want to pay a bunch, you could do divinity. Divinity is going to give you a little bit more toughness and vitality in exchange for less power and precision. Healing power and condition aren't really a focus of this build, so I consider those basically a wash. They're not very useful. As far as weapons go, they're all berserker. I have the accuracy rune for critical hit chance, precision stacks because I like it for this build. It's focused on critical hits basically for damage and survivability. With 25 stacks of precision, I'm going to get over 90% crit at 3 stacks of adrenaline. And then I use leeching on my swap just for extra health. For jewelry, again, berserker, as you can tell. For the knight pieces, I did replace the jewel with the ruby jewel. The reason being you lose the least amount of stats per critical damage on exquisite rubies. It's only 5 stats per 1%. So they're really, really good to basically replace for damage. I'm switching over to my traits. I go 20, 0, 0, 20, 30. This is basically the DPS build for axes. Real quick, the reason I use axe mace, and the reason it's basically you should for dungeons, is it's better sustained damage than greatsword. You have basically same amount of damage on auto attacks, but axe attacks faster. With axe, you also have axe mace rather. You also have a interrupt and a knockdown, and you can also use it to remove defiant stacks. And then you have 2 stacks of 4 vulnerability, so basically 8 stacks total on almost all the time. Compared to greatsword, greatsword doesn't really have any utility at all. It roots you in place when you're using 100 blades, and basically the main reason someone would want to use it is for 25 might stacks, but when you're in a dungeon group with a good group basically that has good synergy, you're going to have 20 plus might stacks without greatsword, so it's kind of a waste. So overall, that's why I think axe mace is much better. And you also have really good burst with eviscerate every 10 seconds. So going through this, 20, you're going to take Berserker's Power, just for more damage, obviously. And then Axe Mastery. With this build, like I said, I have over 90% crit when I'm all stacked up. So 10% more crit damage on axe is basically almost 10% more damage. The other thing to note about this line, the strength line, is building momentum's really, really good. It's going to give you 50% endurance every time you use an adrenaline move, and you can basically use one every 5 seconds by swapping between your weapons. So this frees up the need to use a sigil of energy like I do on my Guardian, because you're always going to have a third dodge through adrenaline. And then the tactics line obviously going to give you more boon duration for your offensive boons that you give out, and then more vitality. For the traits, you're going to want to take banners. Banners are really good for dungeons. They help either survivability or damage of your entire group. And then this one's situational. Right now I have it on empowered just for more damage. It's about 2.5% I believe per boon, 2% maybe. So when I'm running a group with 2 guardians, 2 warriors, we're going to have at least like 4 or 5 boons on. So it really adds to your damage. You can also switch it out for shrug it off if you know you're going to be in a fight with a lot of conditions that you need to remove. With my group it's not much of an issue because both guardians use soldier runes. So you're getting shouts which remove conditions anyway. The other option is you can take something like lower reduction in shouts, or you can even take longbow range for a few instances where you might need to get 1200 range instead of 900 on your longbow. I'm going down to the last line. This line's really, really good for a axe build. You're going to obviously get more critical damage, and then you're going to get more burst damage, and you're constantly using Eviscerate, so that helps out a lot. You want Signet Mastery just because you're going to both reduce Signet of Rage, which you pretty much always have on, and then your heal if you do need it. Fast Hands is really good for this build because you can switch every 5 seconds. Right now it's bugged where the first swap when you enter a zone is going to be the normal 10 seconds, but after that it's 5 seconds every time. And this is going to give you a might stack from this. And then you're also going to get adrenaline. So it all synergizes really well, especially for this build. For heightened focus, I basically took it for, again, higher crit damage. At 3 stacks of adrenaline, you're going to have over 90 with 25 stacks of precision. And then the final skill, which is the main reason we take this, is burst skills cost less. So every time you use Eviscerate, you're only going to use 20 adrenaline. You're always going to have a bar of 10. So this goes well with the synergy for both heightened focus and Berserker's power. So you always have at least stage 1. It also gets you back to basically 3 stacks for your Eviscerate before. I usually have it before the 10-second timer is even up. So that is very good. Going down to my skill bar, the healing signet's really, really good. You regen for quite a bit of health every second. And then I'm going to use For Great Justice and Shake It Off. You always want at least 1 stun breaker, no matter what class you are. So this is basically my stun breaker. For Great Justice, you're going to have might stacks, 3 might stacks up 100% of the time for your entire group. Plus Fury up for, almost half the time. So if you do run 2 warriors, you're going to get Fury up for the group almost constantly, which improves everyone's damage, which helps you kill stuff faster. And then obviously Banner of Discipline. Signet of Rage is really, really good as well. As you can see, 40 seconds for 48 cooldown, so you almost have full uptime on Might, Fury, and Swiftness. So now I'm going to go basically to Cursed Shore and show you this build in action. And then you can also watch the dungeon videos I'll be posting for group play action in a dungeon. Alright, so I'm out here in Cursed Shore. I already did my 25 stacks of precision just to show you what the max crit is with this build. I think without it, it's like 82%. So I'll drop my banner here, use my Fury, which is 100% uptime with this build. So you'll notice that my character page is showing 79% crit right now. One thing to note is the 5% from the sigil and the 9% from 3 stacks of adrenaline with heightened focus. Both don't show up on the tooltip but are confirmed working. So this 79% is really 93%. So that's basically almost all your attacks are critting. The other thing to note that's really important is you always want to eat this food in dungeons. Basically 66% of your attacks are going to heal you for 338 health at level 80. Also, there's no cooldown on this, so it's huge for survivability with a damage build while not giving up damage at all. So you may have seen there I critted and got 338. Something like adrenal health here, which you have to use 15 trait points for, is only going to give you 360 health every 3 seconds at 3 levels of adrenaline. So this food can do that basically 1,000, like it can do 3 times that in 1 second. So again, this food is basically what you can use for survivability without wasting trait points. Alright, so I'm going to go over and kill this veteran giant right here. Wait for my banner real quick. So basically, I have pretty good sustained damage with axe, as you can see. I can use vulnerability, which helps the full group, and then a knockdown as well. Eviscerate's pretty big burst, and then I can switch to bow basically. Build some adrenaline stacks, swap back. And then I had basically max stacks before my Eviscerate was even up. One thing to note also is I'll use my dodge and then Eviscerate and see how I get 50% endurance back. Then say I did need another dodge, I could switch to bow, use that adrenaline attack and get more endurance to get back to full. So basically this build just gives you really good sustained damage, really good survivability without wasting traits on it. And if you watch some of my dungeon videos, you'll basically see that he does a ton of damage and he's not like a total glass cannon that just dies all the time. So hopefully this video helped you out. Thanks for watching.